She was screaming across the fence again, waving that stupid clipboard like it gave her power. "You can't grow corn here, it violates HOA property appearance rules." I tried to ignore her. It was the fourth time this week she'd come yelling about something. But this time she looked different, angry, desperate even. I just said quietly, "Karen, this is my land. HOA doesn't own my soil." That night the air smelled strange, like smoke and chemicals. I ran outside barefoot and my stomach dropped. My cornfield was burning. The fire moved fast, eating months of sweat and hope in seconds. I grabbed the hose, shouting for help, but by the time the fire trucks showed up, half the harvest was gone. I stood there, shaking, watching the firefighters control the flames. Karen stood across the street in her pink robe, pretending to look shocked. But her hands, they were shaking, and her face was pale under the flashing red lights. One firefighter walked toward me and asked, "Any enemies, sir?" Before I could answer, another shouted, "Chief, we found something." They held up a melted red gas can right near the fence that separated her yard from mine. Karen froze. Everyone turned to look at her. I saw her lips tremble before she whispered something I couldn't catch. My chest tightened. She actually did it. And as the smoke rose behind us, I whispered the words that would change everything. "Check her security cameras. I installed mine last week." The next morning, I replayed the footage with the fire investigator standing beside me. The screen showed Karen creeping out around midnight, holding a flashlight and that same red gas can. She looked around like she was in some spy movie, then poured the fuel along the edge of my field. The moment the match hit the ground, I felt my fists clench. She even smiled watching the first flame catch. The investigator sighed. "That's arson, and it's on HOA property lines too. She's in real trouble." But before he could even finish writing the report, a white SUV with the HOA logo pulled up. Three board members stepped out like they owned the world. Their president, some smug guy in a polo shirt, pointed at me. "You can't just accuse our member without approval from the board," he said. "This is HOA jurisdiction." I laughed bitterly. "Jurisdiction? My field burned down, she trespassed. That's criminal, not your rulebook nonsense." Karen stepped behind them, pretending to cry. "He's making this up. He's trying to ruin me because I reported his illegal crops." The investigator crossed his arms. "Ma'am, you're the only person on camera that night." Her fake tears stopped instantly. The HOA president tried to intervene. "That footage is inadmissible without HOA review." That's when I smiled. "Funny thing," I said, pulling another small device from my pocket. "The camera that caught her, it's county installed, sheriff's department." Their faces drained of color. Suddenly the HOA president started stuttering. "We'll need to, confirm that." I just looked at him and said quietly, "You'll confirm it in court." By noon the whole neighborhood was buzzing. Word spread fast, someone had torched my field and the HOA was trying to cover it up. I saw people filming from their porches as sheriff cruisers rolled in. Karen stood on her driveway, face pale, whispering into her phone. She looked terrified now, but not because of me, because she finally realized this wasn't going away. The sheriff walked up to me, calm but serious. "Sir, we got your footage from the county system. It's solid, we'll handle it." He turned toward Karen. "Ma'am, we need you to step aside for a few questions." Karen started shouting before he even finished. "You can't arrest me, I'm part of the HOA board." He raised an eyebrow. "And that gives you the right to burn private property." She froze, speechless. The crowd murmured. I didn't say a word, just watched as the same woman who used to bark orders about mailbox colors now trembled like a child caught stealing. Then, out of nowhere, the HOA president tried to play hero. "Officer, maybe we can settle this quietly. The HOA can cover his loss if he agrees to." I cut him off. "You think this is about money? She set fire to my land. You don't buy your way out of that." The sheriff nodded. "He's right, this isn't civil, it's criminal." Karen suddenly pointed at me, desperation twisting her voice. "He's lying, that footage is fake. He hates me because I reported his military banners on the porch." The sheriff turned slowly. "You mean the flag, the one honoring fallen vets?" Her mouth opened, then closed. Silence. The crowd gasped. I felt my throat tighten. "Yeah," I said quietly, "that flag belonged to my brother, the same brother who taught me never to back down from bullies." Karen's face went blank, and for the first time ever, she had nothing left to say. They took Karen to the sheriff's SUV, but she kept shouting, trying to twist the story. "He's dangerous, he threatened me before," she screamed, even as they shut the door. I stood there, tired, covered in ash, watching the woman who made my life miserable finally lose her power. But I knew it wasn't over, not yet. HOA people never quit quietly. The next day, I got a letter taped to my door. It had the HOA logo on top, printed all official. Notice of violation, unauthorized surveillance equipment, and damage to community property. I almost laughed out loud. They were actually blaming me for installing the same cameras that caught their board member committing arson. I walked straight to their office. The same president who tried to bribe me before looked up nervously when I entered. "Sir, we're still reviewing." "Save it," I said, dropping a flash drive on his desk. "That's the footage the sheriff took. You'll want to see who else was in it." He frowned, opened his laptop, and pressed play. His expression changed instantly because the camera angle from across the street showed him walking onto my property with Karen the night before the fire. He was holding a clipboard, marking something down as she poured the fuel. I leaned forward, keeping my voice calm. "Guess it wasn't just her idea, huh?" He stammered, "That's not what it looks like." I smiled coldly. "It looks like conspiracy and property damage, and since you tried to bury this under HOA rules, looks like obstruction too." He went pale. "What do you want?" I paused for a second, then said, "Not money. I want every single HOA notice removed from my land forever." He swallowed hard. "And if I do?" I nodded toward the flash drive. "Then tomorrow morning that footage hits every local news channel in the county." That night, the HOA president's SUV quietly rolled past my house, but he didn't stop. The next morning, every single HOA sign, post, and community rule banner around my fence was gone like they'd never existed. I thought it was over until my phone buzzed. It was the sheriff. "Mr. Walker," he said, "you might want to come down to the station. We've got new evidence." When I got there, he showed me still images from a security cam near the fire site. Behind Karen and the HOA president was another figure, a man in a gray hoodie carrying a metal case. "He's HOA maintenance," the sheriff said. "Name, Paul Lester. We found accelerant residue in his truck bed. Looks like this wasn't just a grudge, it was planned." I frowned. "Planned why?" The sheriff pointed at a county map. "See this line? Turns out your cornfield sits right over a water pipe HOA was trying to reroute for their new model homes. You refused to sell, so they wanted you off the land." It hit me like a punch, "So they burned it to force me out." He nodded slowly, "But they didn't expect your cameras or the county's." Later that afternoon, I stood near the ashes of my harvest, wind pushing gray smoke into the distance. The sheriff's trucks pulled up to Karen's house. The HOA president stood beside her, both looking lost, broken. When the handcuffs clicked, a few neighbors actually clapped. Karen looked at me through the car window, no more anger, just fear. I walked up slowly and said, "You wanted control so bad, now you've lost everything." She didn't reply, just turned her face away as the car pulled off. For the first time in months, my land was silent, peaceful, but inside I knew this story wasn't ending with an arrest. HOA corruption ran deeper than Karen or her clipboard. And I had just started digging. 2 weeks later, my mailbox was stuffed with envelopes, law notices, settlement offers, even apology letters signed by the HOA's lawyer. They offered to resolve the matter privately if I agreed not to speak to the press. That was their biggest mistake yet. I didn't just speak, I showed everything. I sent the footage, the fire reports, and the sheriff's findings straight to Channel 9 News. That night, my story aired under the headline, "HOA Arson Scandal, Local Farmers' Land Burned in Illegal Takeover Plot." By morning, the clip went viral. Thousands of comments poured in. People from across the country were furious: veterans, farmers, families who'd been bullied by HOAs. Some even drove out just to shake my hand. Karen's name was trending. The HOA president resigned. Paul, the maintenance guy, turned himself in and started talking. Turns out the board had been hiding a pile of shady land deals. They'd been bullying homeowners, forging documents, even staging code violations to force people out. But when the county prosecutor called me in, he said something that froze me mid-step. "Mr. Walker, this isn't just HOA corruption anymore. The developer funding their projects is connected to a federal land acquisition scheme. Your case might open a major investigation." I sat there stunned. So this all started because I planted corn on my land. He nodded. Sometimes the smallest seed uncovers the biggest rot. That night, I walked my field, what was left of it, thinking about how a simple crop turned into a war over power. The soil was black, but new green shoots were already breaking through. I knelt, touching the fresh sprouts, and whispered, "They tried to burn me out, but you can't destroy roots that run this deep." Then my phone buzzed again, an unknown number, no caller ID. I answered. A calm voice said, "Mr. Walker, we need to talk about who really owns that land." I froze. The voice on the line wasn't local, steady, deep, and official. "Who is this?" I asked, stepping out onto my porch. "This is Special Agent Collins, Federal Land Bureau," the voice replied. "You're sitting on property that overlaps restricted survey lines. The HOA's involvement isn't random, they were working under someone much bigger." I felt my chest tighten. Restricted, my family's owned this land for 3 generations. There was a pause. "We know," he said, "and that's exactly why you were targeted." The call ended before I could ask anything else. A cold wind swept through the fields, bending the new green shoots. Something didn't feel right anymore. This wasn't about Karen's arrogance or HOA greed. It was deeper, older. The next morning, 2 black SUVs parked by the road. Not sheriff cars this time, federal plates. They scanned the ground with long-range sensors marking coordinates. One of them knocked on my door and flashed a badge. "Mr. Walker, we need access to the western section of your property. There's something buried beneath it." "Buried?" I repeated. "Like what?" He exchanged a look with his partner. "Old government equipment, possibly a sealed line from the 1950s, classified infrastructure." I laughed in disbelief. So all this fire threats, the HOA was about something under my land. He nodded slowly. "That's our theory. Someone wanted it quietly reclaimed, and burning you out was the fastest way." I looked past him at the faint scars in the earth where the corn once stood. "You're telling me Karen torched my field for the government?" He smirked slightly. Because of, she was promised a payoff for forcing you off, but she didn't know who she was really working for." The agents started unpacking equipment. One of them said, "Stay inside, sir, this area might be unstable." But I didn't move. I just whispered to myself, "You can hide a lot under land, but you can't bury the truth forever." 5 by dusk, the agents had fenced off the western half of my field. Floodlights glared against the night sky and machines hummed as they drilled into the ground. I stood on my porch, arms crossed, watching them pull out metal fragments covered in rust and dirt. Whatever was buried down there, it wasn't ordinary. One of the agents approached me holding a sealed container. "Found this about 6 feet down, you might want to see it." Inside was a corroded metal plaque stamped with a faint seal, U.S. Defense Communication Project, 1953. I frowned, so there was something here. He nodded. "An abandoned emergency comms bunker, forgotten until recent land remapping. The HOA developer found it in old files and wanted to claim the area before it became public record. So they tried to push me out by fire," I muttered. He sighed. "They didn't know it was still under federal restriction. When we picked up their permit requests, your name popped up as the only obstacle." I stared at the metal plate, anger and disbelief swirling inside me. My land, my family's work, and they thought they could just erase it for some hidden bunker. Before he could respond, one of the floodlights flickered out. A low thud echoed from the drill site, then screaming. I ran toward the fence. 2 agents were waving flashlights into a hole, shouting, "We hit something, it's hollow open space down here." The ground started to tremble slightly, like something deep below was shifting. One of them shouted, "Everyone back." Then came a dull metallic clang, like a door unlatching beneath the earth. Dust blew up around us, and through the haze I could see an opening form. A dark tunnel lined with metal leading straight under my land. Agent Collins turned to me, eyes wide. "Mr. Walker, whatever this is, it was never declassified." I looked at the gaping hole where my corn used to grow and said quietly, "Guess my field been hiding more than roots."